rescue cat gives birth, then her owner realizes they aren't normal kittens. In the quiet sanctuary of a sunlit room, where dust motes dance sluggishly in the heavy golden rays of late afternoon, a profound and breathtaking impossibility is taking place. The air here is thick with a comforting, almost intoxicating scent, a blend of warm, sweet milk, the earthy musk of dry hay, and the clean, powdery fragrance of fresh linens. At the center of this tranquil universe lies Seraphina, a rescue cat whose magnificent coat is a pristine, sweeping expanse of cloud-white silk. She is purring, producing a deep, resonant, and rhythmic thrum that vibrates visibly through the wooden floorboards. A maternal sound that nature dictated was strictly reserved for the delicate, blind felines she was meant to bring into the world. But as the shadows lengthen and the amber light shifts across her soft, exposed underbelly, the truth of her situation reveals itself in a rustle of sharp, bristling textures.
Beneath her, nestled fiercely against the delicate pink skin of her stomach, are not the velvet-eared kitten's evolution intended. Instead, a cluster of prickly brown and white forms shift, jostle, and squeak. They are infant hedgehogs. A feline predator, an animal born with the ancient hardwired instinct to hunt and consume small scuttling creatures, is gently wrapping her gossamer, plume-like tail around the ultimate unhuggable prey, offering life-sustaining warmth where instinct demands she should offer death.
It is a visual that shatters the fundamental rules of the wild. A silent, breathtaking rebellion written entirely in the unspoken language of maternal devotion. Before we dive deeper into this extraordinary, continuous journey of unlikely love, profound healing, and the mysteries of the animal heart, I want to take a brief moment to warmly invite you into our community. If stories like this, stories that challenge everything we think we know about nature and touch the deepest, most empathetic parts of our souls, resonate with you, please take a second to gently tap the like button and subscribe to our channel. We would also absolutely love to know where in the vast world you are experiencing this beautiful story from right now. Please drop a comment below with your city or country and let us know exactly what time it is there. Your constant presence and shared emotions are what make telling these stories possible, connecting all of us across distant time zones and borders through the universal, unifying language of compassion. The story of this impossible, miraculous family begins many months earlier, physically and emotionally enveloped in the creeping, unforgiving frost of a bitter November. The rugged landscape surrounding Alara's rustic, isolated farmhouse was locked tightly in a cage of ice, the winter air sharp enough to sting the lungs, carrying the brittle, metallic scent of impending snow. Alara, a gentle-hearted woman whose solitary life was defined by the quiet, steady rhythms of the natural world, had found Seraphina huddled desperately beneath the frozen, warping wooden planks of her back porch. The cat was little more than a trembling, ghostly silhouette against the consuming darkness. Her brilliant white fur matted heavily with freezing mud and debris. Her large, golden green eyes wide with the hollow, haunting gaze of a creature who had known only a desperate fight for survival, never the soft embrace of safety. When Alara finally coaxed her inside, immediately wrapping her shivering form in a thick fleece blanket that smelled deeply of dried lavender and old wood smoke, a profound, unspoken bond was instantly forged between the two survivors. As the long, dark weeks passed, the farmhouse, which had previously been filled only with the rhythmic, lonely ticking of an antique grandfather clock and the howling, whistling winds of winter, began to warm under Seraphina's gentle, trusting presence. But there was a lingering, heavy shadow cast over their quiet, domestic joy. Serafina had been heavily pregnant when she was pulled from the freezing night, carrying the joyous promise of new life. Yet, as the harsh winter dragged on and the deep freeze refused to yield, the life within her quietly, tragically faded, a silent loss that left her body instinctively preparing for kittens that would simply never arrive. A deep, palpable, and overwhelming melancholy settled over the white cat like a heavy shroud. She would wander the narrow hallways in the dim, slate-gray light of early dawn, her cries echoing with the acidic, sharp scent of emotional pain and desperate longing. Constantly searching the dark corners of closets and empty laundry baskets for the phantom babies her biology screamed she was supposed to be nursing. Elara watched from the doorway, entirely helpless, her own heart breaking as she bore witness to the raw, unfulfilled ache of a mother left with a surplus of love and absolutely no one to nurture. The devastating turning point in their lives arrived with the tempestuous, violent transition from winter to early spring. It was a chaotic week marked by the heavy, humid promise of relentless rain, the atmosphere feeling thick and charged with the metallic tang of ozone and the restless, nervous energy of changing seasons. A fierce, unyielding storm rolled fiercely through the valley one evening, turning the sky a deeply bruised, apocalyptic purple and furiously lashing the fragile farmhouse with sheets of torrential rain. The morning after the deluge, the world outside smelled intensely of petrichor, bruised green leaves, wet pine needles, and thoroughly waterlogged earth. While slowly inspecting the structural damage in the back corners of her garden, Elara heard a sound so faint, so fragile, it was almost completely swallowed by the rhythmic dripping of the saturated trees, a high-pitched, desperate, and fading peeping. Beneath the violently collapsed ruins of a rotting, moss-covered log pile, she discovered a ruined nest made of damp oak leaves and mud. Inside this wreckage lay a tiny litter of newborn hedgehogs, their delicate eyes still tightly sealed against the world, their soft, translucent white spines just beginning the process of hardening into the brown, prickly armor of adulthood. They were terrifyingly ice-cold to the touch, their tiny, thumb-sized bodies trembling violently with a profound, heartbreaking fragility. The mother hedgehog, perhaps critically spooked by the violent cracks of thunder or tragically swept away by the sudden, rushing floodwaters, was nowhere to be found. Elara immediately knew the grim, unforgiving reality of the situation. She frantically rushed the orphaned hoglets inside the house, quickly setting up a makeshift warming box beneath the artificial, stark, and uncompromising glare of a heat lamp. The air in the small room rapidly grew thick with the chalky smell of powdered feline milk replacement and the sharp, almost sterile scent of human anxiety. She urgently consulted local wildlife experts over the phone, their voices crackling through the receiver with dire, discouraging warnings. Hand-rearing infant hedgehogs from such an incredibly young age, especially without the critical, life-saving antibodies found naturally in their mother's milk, is a monumental and overwhelmingly futile task. The margin for error is functionally non-existent. They simply fade away. As the agonizing hours bled slowly into a dark, sleepless night, Elara experienced the crushing, suffocating weight of impending failure. The hoglets were far too weak to properly latch on to the tiny, artificial rubber syringes she offered. The warm milk simply dribbled down their little chins, cold, sticky, and utterly useless. Their desperate peeping grew noticeably weaker by the hour, slowly replaced by a lethargic, terrifying stillness that sent shivers of dread cascading down Elara's spine. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, transforming into a desperate, heartbreaking fight against the inevitable fading of fragile life. It was precisely during this darkest, most desperate hour, as Elara sat defeated on the floor, her eyes heavy with profound exhaustion and unshed tears, that a silent shadow appeared in the doorway. Serafina had been relentlessly pacing the perimeter of the closed nursery room for hours, her sensitive ears swiveling to capture every microscopic, pathetic sound emitting from the plastic warming box. Elara had purposefully kept the feline away, driven by the highly logical, terrifying fear that Serafina's innate predatory instincts would be instantly triggered by the musky scent of tiny, helpless rodents. A large carnivorous cat and a nest of abandoned, weak prey, it was a textbook recipe for immediate tragedy. But as Elara momentarily stepped back to the kitchen to frantically mix a new, slightly warmer batch of formula, she forgot to click the door entirely shut. In a fluid, utterly silent motion, Serafina slipped gracefully into the room. Elara turned around just in time, her breath violently catching in her throat, her muscles tensing to desperately intervene and protect the babies. The large white cat stood towering over the low cardboard edges of the box, her golden green eyes fixed intensely on the trembling, spiky cluster below. Time seemed to miraculously suspend itself in the quiet room, the only audible sound the distant low hum of the kitchen refrigerator. Serafina did not flatten her ears. She did not bare her teeth. She did not strike with lightning speed. Instead, she let out a low, incredibly gentle trilling chirrup, the universal, unmistakable feline vocalization used to greet and comfort newborn kittens. Slowly, with an agonizingly deliberate and mindful tenderness, the massive cat stepped gracefully over the threshold of the box. She lowered her immense, snowy frame, carefully and meticulously negotiating the sharp, unfamiliar, and defensive textures of their tiny quills. The breathtaking reveal of this moment was not one of violence or instinctual bloodshed, but of absolute, astonishing surrender. Serafina gently curved her long body into a tight, protective crescent moon, willingly offering her exceptionally warm, impossibly soft underbelly to the shivering orphans. Her internal emotional state, starved and aching for months with nowhere to direct her maternal love, finally found its desperate anchor. The hoglets, driven purely by the desperate, blind, biological instinct for immediate survival, smelled the faint, latent scent of milk and felt the radiating, life-saving heat of a mother's heavy body. They didn't care in the slightest that the fur pressing against them was far too long, or that the heartbeat thrumming in their ears was far too slow for a hedgehog. They rooted aggressively against her, their prickly, defensive backs pressing deeply and unapologetically into her silken, white coat. Elara stood frozen, watching as hot tears freely spilled down her cheeks, witnessing the ghostly kittens Serafina had so deeply mourned being miraculously, beautifully replaced by these impossible, spiky substitutes. The terrifying mystery of the cat's intense, unblinking focus was finally solved. She hadn't smelled a meal. She had smelled a child in agonizing need. The incredibly tender days that immediately followed transformed the quiet, lonely farmhouse into a bustling sanctuary of miraculous healing and impossible interspecies harmony. The microenvironment within the expanded nursery box, became a perfect climate of pure, unfiltered comfort. The air was perpetually and beautifully infused with the warm, yeasty aroma of contented sleeping animals and the soft, dusty, nostalgic scent of heated flannel blankets. Whenever Alara quietly peered over the edge of the box, she was consistently greeted by a scene that felt wonderfully lifted from the pages of a forgotten, magical fairy tale. Serafina would lie completely relaxed, her limbs splayed out, her eyes half closed in a state of absolute zen-like bliss, while the tiny, growing hedgehogs practically disappeared into the voluminous, cloudy drifts of her bright white fur.
The most hypnotic and mesmerizing aspect of their bond was their perfectly synchronized breathing. As Serafina's massive chest steadily rose and fell, the rhythmic, heavy and constant thrum of her purr vibrated directly through the tiny bodies of the hoglets. This powerful purr, vibrating exactly at a frequency scientifically proven in felines to promote soft tissue regeneration and bone healing, acted as a powerful biological lullaby, firmly anchoring the fragile, fading babies back to the realm of the living.
The sharp, acidic tension that had previously gripped the entire house entirely evaporated, rapidly replaced by a profound, heavy, and golden peace. Serafina took her newly acquired maternal duties to an astonishing, almost unbelievable level. Despite the highly abrasive, physically stinging texture of their hardening adult quills, she would meticulously and obsessively groom them. Her rough, sandpaper-like tongue would slide carefully and deliberately over their spiky brown backs, cleaning off the formula residue with the exact same fierce devotion she would have undoubtedly shown her own biological flesh and blood. She learned precisely, through trial and error, exactly how much pressure to gently apply, closing her eyes tightly and flinching ever so slightly when a particularly sharp quill accidentally poked her sensitive pink nose, but never once retreating, hissing, or growling in frustration. The physical and emotional reconnection was absolute.
Under her vigilant care, the hoglets grew exceptionally plump and highly energetic, their dark, beady little eyes finally opening to view a vast world where their ultimate protector was a giant, white, furry predator. They would playfully and fearlessly bite at her fluffy, sweeping tail, and she would simply let out a long, dramatic sigh. A sound completely full of deep, weary, maternal contentment, gently wrapping her large, white paws around their prickly bodies to keep them perfectly warm against the creeping chill of the evening shadows.
This extraordinary, continuing living arrangement violently forces us to pause and deeply, fundamentally question everything we thought we knew about the supposedly rigid, unbreakable laws of nature. We are clinically taught from a very young age that the animal kingdom is governed solely by the cold, calculating mechanics of raw survival, that the natural world is divided neatly and without exception into predator and prey, the strong and the weak. We are repeatedly told that instinct is an unbreakable biological chain, yet Serafina and her adopted spiky hedgehogs stand together as a magnificent, undeniable, and living testament to something far more complex, nuanced, and infinitely beautiful. They actively teach us about a profound, elevated animal intelligence that completely transcends basic evolutionary programming.
Their daily interactions heavily suggest the undeniable existence of a deep emotional vocabulary that we, as humans, are only just beginning to truly understand and respect. The fierce protective bond between this grieving rescue cat and her unusual babies speaks directly to a sixth sense of pure empathy. An invisible, magnetic, and powerful force that instantly recognizes vulnerability and suffering and responds with fierce nurturing, regardless of the physical vessel or species it comes packaged in.
Serafina's profound sorrow over her lost kittens created a massive emotional void, and the universe, in its strange, unpredictable, and deeply poetic wisdom, filled it not with what she biologically expected, but with exactly what her heart desperately needed. It definitively proves that love, in its absolute purest, most instinctual and unfiltered form, is perhaps the ultimate survival mechanism on this planet. It is the miraculous bridge that effortlessly spans the supposedly impossible evolutionary gap between vastly different species, proving once and for all that deep compassion, is absolutely not a uniquely human trait, but rather a universal, binding frequency that thrums quietly through the earth, waiting only for a heart broken and open enough to finally tune into it. As we watch Serafina resting peacefully in the dappled, fading sunlight of the afternoon, her snowy, pristine fur providing a stark, visually stunning contrast against the earthy, brown, and rigid quills of the babies happily nestled at her breast, we are gently reminded that true miracles are not always grand, sweeping, world-altering events. Sometimes they are exactly as quiet as a steady purr in a darkened room, and exactly as simple as a grieving mother actively choosing to fiercely love a child that looks absolutely nothing like her. This ongoing story of a rescued, heartbroken cat and her highly unusual, prickly litter is a gentle, lingering, and necessary reminder that our world is far more magical, far more forgiving, and infinitely more capable of boundless love than we so often give it credit for. If this beautiful emotional journey has touched your heart today and reminded you of the profound, often hidden mysteries of the natural world, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel to join our growing community, and share this video with someone in your life who might deeply need a gentle reminder of the pure good that still exists in the world today. Before you go, we genuinely want to hear from you. Have you ever personally witnessed an animal display an unexpected act of profound empathy or maternal intuition that completely defied logical explanation? Please share your stories in the comments below, and let's passionately continue to explore and celebrate the incredible, unspoken, and unifying language of the heart.